What's up, boys? This is Tim here. I'm just going to recap the card. Like literally, they're announcing it right now. They just announced that Ankalaev had a draw with Jan Blakovic. I mean, I'm like processing this. I'm guessing they went. So they went 48-47. So they gave Jan the first three rounds and then two 10-9s. And then I'm guessing 47-47. So first three rounds, there was a 10-9 Ankalaev and then 10-8 Ankalaev, I'm guessing. And I think there was another one where they gave Ankalaev round one, round two, and a 10-8 round three. Yeah, and sorry guys, I'm like literally processing this as I go, but I think I just summarized that right. But yeah, I agree. Like 4 and 5 were clear Ankalaev, so one judge just gave Jan the first three. I agree. Round 2 and 3 were clear as well. Like I thought Jan got 2 and 3 with the leg kicks. I thought round 1 was Ankalaev, but it was close. I'd have to rewatch it. I do think 10-8 round definitely for round 5. I think 2 judges gave it to him. So, like, I guess you could feasibly give rounds 1, 2, and 3 to Jan. Like, I whenever I like look at scorecards, I feel like a range of outcomes are acceptable, but I still don't like that because that means you didn't give Ankalaev round 1 when it was like very close and maybe his, and then you didn't give Ankalaev a 10-8 round in round 5. So I don't know. I think Ankalaev was clearly the better fighter. I think some like technical aspects of the fight that I like really noticed was the head strikes. I thought Ankalaev was a lot better, and I'm guessing he outlanded him to the head. But the leg kicks were a big deal. Once Ankalaev started checking more and pressuring, he was taking the kicks away from Jan. So that was like a really good strategy that he kind of changed. And one big thing on the wrestling that this is something, I can't always see some striking stuff. I don't come from a striking background, but I grew up wrestling, so I could sometimes see some stuff. And it was really clear in those early rounds, and you've seen Jan in those clinch positions against Jacare and others. He's really hard to take down with upper body takedowns, and he's much easier to take down when you attack below the waist, especially on like a single leg, because you can get him off balance. And a lot of non-wrestlers are good at defending upper body takedowns because learning how to pummel and get underhooks isn't that hard. But learning like how to stop takedowns below the waist takes a lot more skill. And once Ankalaev started going below the waist, he kept landing the takedowns. And that was in the end of round 3, 4, and 5. So that was kind of a tactical, and then he noticed that, I'm guessing, because then he started only going for lower body takedowns like in round 4, and then round 5 he kind of just rushed them. But that was something I noticed. But I think as far as like betting goes, I didn't play the fight. I honestly think Ankalaev at -300 is like the correct line. He could have even lost tonight, but the way I see it is a striking. And it's kind of how I thought before the fight. I slightly favored Jan in the striking before the fight, and I thought it was close. Like, I do think now that Ankalaev knows those leg kicks are coming, he could adjust and win the striking. But then because Ankalaev had that grappling advantage, he's the rightful clear favorite going forward. I'm guessing they're going to do a rematch. So I'm guessing Ankalaev will be a pretty big favorite again. So, yeah. Moving to the co-main event, the Pimblett Gordon fight. So, only bet that I had on the whole card was Topuria, which I will talk about. I did throw, that was like a track bet I did, and then I did throw a little bit, like really small, like equivalent of like 0.1, 0.2 units on Gordon decision at +500, or +450. I'm kind of annoyed that didn't hit, but I'm trying to think of the fight. I thought like, again, a range of outcomes or like what I look for in decisions. I thought Gordon clearly won round 1, and I think what bothers me about this decision is that 2 judges gave round 1 to Patty, which seems nuts. And it was still like, it wasn't like a blowout, but Gordon outlanded him 40-29 in strikes. And I thought he landed the harder shots in that fight. Like he landed some really good head strikes and left hooks. And I thought that was like literally clear. Let me look at MMA decisions and see how that went. Like how people scored it overall. Like I don't even server is unavailable, so I can't see right now. But yeah, I thought Gordon won round one. Round 2 and 3 were both really, really close. I thought round 2 was like 50-50 to maybe like maybe a slight lean Paddy, just because I thought he started landing like good shots at the end of the round. But I thought that was really close. Like I was really, really borderline on that. Round 3, I think you have to give it to Gordon. The totals, and again, round 2 was 47-39 Pimblett in total strikes, and then Gordon got 2 minutes of control. So it was like striking matters these days, especially with all these weirdos like going to war on grappling lately about judging. But I do think Pimblett landed the more damaging shots at the end of that round. So I kind of leaned him, but that was like still really 50-50. Round 3, I thought it was Gordon, but I still thought it was close. But I thought it was Gordon. Like I thought it was like 60% Gordon maybe. They were 21-21 on total strikes, and Gordon controlled him for 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Like I know control shouldn't matter. It's not like the end all be all, but when the striking was like overall, the striking numbers were dead even. And then one guy gets 4 minutes of control and the other guy gets 30 seconds of control. That makes no sense to me. So I thought round 1 and 3, just using stats and using my eyes, I thought they were like, I thought round 1 was pretty clear Gordon. Then round 3, I thought it was like a lean Gordon. And then round 2, I thought it was 50-50. So like giving Pimblett 2 of the cards seems nuts. And yeah, like I agree. This is pretty much how I scored it. I honestly think 30-27 Gordon is probably even more reasonable than 29-28 Paddy, but I wouldn't agree with that. Like this is how I scored it right here, just like how you did. I scored Gordon and then Paddy round 2 and Gordon round 3, and kind of thought like round 2 and 3 were more competitive. Or like I guess like a range of outcomes you could potentially give it to Paddy 29-28, but I just thought it was kind of, it just doesn't seem right to me. And yeah, this is pretty much what I thought too. I think 29-28 Gordon's probably the right scorecard, 1 and 3. And then I thought Gordon, the second best scorecard would probably be 30-27 Gordon. Then the third best scorecard would probably be 29-28 Paddy. And then a 30-27 Paddy would be kind of insane. And 100%, I agree with that as well. I thought that whenever I heard that as well. Because I had the decision line, so that was kind of annoying that didn't hit. I still think, and let me know if you think, just looking at all the props, I thought that was the best play on the fight. Like I know it didn't hit. Pimblett decision was plus 300, and honestly, like I would rather have plus 485 Gordon by decision than Pimblett decision plus 325. Like, and my reasoning was basically Gordon's only finished one guy, and it was his UFC debut, and then Paddy's never been finished in his career. And I just thought if Gordon was going to win, it was going to be on the cards. And I thought that he had a lot of ways to win fights. Like as far as the fight goes, I picked Gordon, but I thought it was going to be really close. Like I did think it was going to be close. So it was, I kind of thought Paddy would land big shots at times, but Gordon would be a little more consistent on the feet. And I think that's about what happened. And then I thought Gordon could get top time. I think one thing that didn't go totally how I expected, I thought Gordon would be able to consolidate top position a little easier. And he kind of didn't. He did a little bit at the end of one of the rounds, but at the end of round 3 would honestly probably cost him that round. He got the takedown and tried to put hooks in. He shouldn't have done that. He should have stayed in the Khabib half position where he just like whenever you put 2 hooks in, what happens is you can lose position because both of your feet are off the mat. When you're in a half position, you have one foot on the mat to adjust if like your opponent starts moving, or you just have both of your feet on the mat and ride. It's not as much of a dominant position, but you can ride. And I thought he should have done either a half position or just rode. And like, I'm not a fighter. Like, whenever I get, sometimes people will be like, oh, you're not a fighter, don't give advice. But I'm just like, I'm not saying it in a condescending way. I think like him and his coaches would probably agree because he jumped the back, he lost position. And then that's probably why Paddy got round 3 on, I'm guessing he got round 3 in a couple cards, right? So that was kind of what I noticed. But I do think Gordon 29-28 is the way I scored it. But I wouldn't call the fight a robbery. I saw people saying there should be an investigation. I don't agree. Like, I still think 2 and 3 were close enough to where you could give Paddy the fight, but I still think it's a bad decision, like not a robbery. It's still like acceptable, but it's not correct in my opinion. Morono and Ponzinibbio. I didn't bet this fight. I picked Ponzinibbio, but I almost picked Morono. And I've generally, like, I picked Morono to upset Semmelsberger. And the reason is just because he has really good striking numbers. Like, a lot of people don't like striking numbers all that much, but they can come in handy. And he hurt Ponzinibbio a lot. Like, I thought Morono fought pretty well. And he was up rounds 1 and 2 by just kind of landing heavier shots. But round 1, he won clean and hurt Ponzinibbio badly. Round 2, outside of the knockdown, which I still thought gave Morono round 2, just because he knocked Ponzinibbio down. I thought round 2, like, Ponzinibbio was kind of starting to turn the corner a little bit, though, because I felt like Morono was slowing down a little bit. And I'm guessing because he took this fight on short notice, because usually Morono has pretty good cardio. You could tell he was kind of slowing down around 2. And then around 3, even though he hurt Ponzinibbio, I still felt like because he was going for the finish and just overall, I did think he looked a little more tired in the later rounds. And he still could have won that. I mean, he was really close to winning that fight. Like, he was up on rounds 1 and 2, and then he just got clipped. And a reason why I don't bet striking fights often, especially competitive striking fights, and on paper, Ponzinibbio was a favorite, but I think most would agree it was still going to be competitive and like they could trade rounds. I don't like betting striking fights because they're harder to judge and they're high variance. Like, you saw these guys knocking each other down. Either of them could have won by knockout, and knockouts are really hard to call. It's just really hard to call for a single strike to knock someone unconscious. Like, there's some obvious situations where it could happen, but when there's not a huge durability disadvantage, where I don't think there was here, it's a little harder. And at least for me, other people could probably do it better. But yeah, kind of feel bad for Morono. He like really worked hard and took a risk there. It just didn't work out, and he got a concussion over it. Moving on to Darren Till and Du Plessis. I've historically just ripped on Till not being very good for a very long time. I played Jorge Masvidal plus 200 over him. I think I probably bet against him again. And I used to get hate for it because people used to think Till was good, but I think now the secret's out. It's just the guy can't grapple. Whenever he is on, especially when he gets flat on his back, he is bad. He's just bad. And yeah, like, I can't believe he got a title shot at one point in a division with Usman and Colby, who win that fight 95% of the time against Darren Till. But Du Plessis kind of went nuts in round 1 and kind of gassed himself out. And then round 2, he was kind of getting sprawled and brawled and beat up in round 2. And then I feel like he might have, he was really tired in round 2, Du Plessis, and I think he kind of took it off because he was so tired. Then in round 3, I felt like he almost had a second win. Let me know if you guys agree in the comments, but I do feel like he seemed to like, he put up more resistance, not only in the grappling in round 3, but also the striking, Du Plessis. I feel like he started like doing more, and he kind of had a second wind. And I think he might have been conserving himself for kind of emptying the gas tank in round 1. But I don't know. Till's probably going to get cut. I just don't think he's a very good fighter. He's lost 5 of his last 6. His only win is a split decision against Kelvin Gastelum. And yeah, like, doesn't look great for him. Du Plessis, I don't know. He's all right. He's not a bad fighter. think he'll like make a major run in this division, but he could stick around the top 10 or 15. I don't really pay attention to rankings all that much. I don't know where he's at, but he could hang around. Jan won 1, 2, 3. Fuck man, Yuri's still champ then. Well, I think he's not champion actually, Jay. I think he vacated it. So I think there's like just technically there's no champion. So yeah, like because I think it's actually a vacated belt, and they were fighting for the vacated championship belt. I don't always know how all that works, but I'm pretty sure the way I'm saying it is how it was. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think there's just no champion, and Yuri's not champion anymore either. It's just there's no champion of light heavyweight. I'm guessing Ankalaev will either fight Glover or Jan. It's kind of it's very, very weird. It's a very weird setup. But yeah, back to Du Plessis and Till. I don't have much more to say about that. My only bet of the night was on Topuria over Mitchell. And this was my basis of the bet. On the feet, I thought Topuria was just going to be better, and and he hits a lot harder in the pocket, and he's just physical, and he hits really hard. And I kind of noticed it the more I taped, because going into tape, I kind of was leaning Mitchell, and once I started taping, I was like, oh fuck, like I think Mitchell's fucked here. And so I thought the striking, and that ended up kind of playing out. I do think Mitchell did, like, especially in round 2, he started having a little more success, because I think it was more so because Topuria was kind of being a little more aggressive, and he was almost like disrespecting Mitchell. And I think he did get caught a couple times, Topuria, but overall Topuria was landing like way bigger shots. It was the more physical striker and was hurting Mitchell. And that kind of played out how I thought. And then the other reason is I thought Topuria was a better positional wrestler. And that was kind of controversial take, but what's his name? Mitchell had not had a takedown attempted on him since 2019 against Bobby Moffett. So it's like, and people didn't really realize that. Now, and I was watching Topuria's grappling, and I'm like, I think he could get takedowns and hold Mitchell down. And Mitchell was also out-controlled in against Moffett and Tyler Diamond, but he's had 4 straight fights that spanned across 3 to 4 years where he wasn't tested there. So that was like my ace in the hole. I was like, not only do I think Topuria is the better striker, I think he's a better positional wrestler as well. And he could get offensive takedowns himself. And like I don't think he ended up going for takedowns, but you did see I think when Mitchell shot in, he like shucked him off and threw him down. Was he credited for takedown attempts or takedowns there? I'm gonna look. He might have had one. No, they didn't give him any, which is probably right. Which is they probably scored that right. But I thought Topuria could like ride top position, and if he wanted to shoot takedowns, he could land them. But I also just thought on the feet he'd be better. But then he defends takedowns at 100%. Topuria going in this fight, and Mitchell went 1 of 9 on takedowns. So I was just kind of like, Topuria has 2 ways to win this fight: on the feet and with top time. And then Mitchell generally wins with only grappling, and he's going against a guy with 100% takedown defense, and I don't trust Mitchell to win fights unless he can get easy takedowns. And I played Mitchell against Barboza, so it's not that I dislike Mitchell. It's more so the style matchup just didn't favor him here. So I did go to Topuria there, and I'm glad it worked out. But I do think Topuria's gas tank, like he still did get held down at the end of round 1 for a little bit, but it was just like, it had to be like 30, 40 seconds or so. And I do think he was kind of getting a little like in round 2, like I feel like he was fighting at a pace that maybe he couldn't have kept up. Like he was winging shots. So it was kind of worrying me. I was like, dude, slow down. Like if you just slow this down, you're going to stop the takedowns and just land the better shots. But I don't, in 5 rounds, that style would concern me. In 3 rounds, he might be okay. And yeah, like I agree with this. Like I'm curious to see it too. I feel like he would have to slow his style down a little more. He's really powerful, but being like, if he can sustain that for 5 rounds, I mean, he might become champion at some point, but I doubt he could. He did slow down a little bit against Zalal, and I felt, maybe I'm going crazy, but I did feel like tonight, and I was on Topuria. Like, I bet him, and I thought he was a good bet, even in hindsight. But I did feel like that could have been something that could have happened, where he could have slowed down a little bit. Cam hit Topuria as well. Nice, man. I'm happy for you. I hit him too. Yeah, so I ended up winning money tonight, which is good. And I missed on Holtzman last week, so that was kind of annoying. But yeah, Mitchell, I think Mitchell's still a fine fighter. I just feel like he is a little style dependent. Like, he's just gonna run into a wall with guys who have good takedown defense, and it's just simple as that, because he's not a good enough striker. But it was a fun fight. That main card was a lot of fun, man. Like, Jan Ankalaev was even fun at times. Pimblett Gordon was pretty fun overall. But like, they both landed some good shots in rounds 1 and 2. Morono Ponzinibbio was a lot of fun. Till Plessis was a shit show. Mitchell Topuria was fun. I'll just keep going because I have some time. Perrin and Rosas. I didn't know what I picked Rosas to win the fight. I was a little nervous, but going into Contender Series, I bet him on the Contender Series at like -1 something. And it was the only Contender Series fight. I don't really bet Contender Series, but it's the only Contender Series fight that I bet this year. And I like his back taking upside. And I think he is a very good back taker. But I just didn't know if that would like work as easily against Perrin. And I just like am still have question marks about Rosas in other areas. But I picked him because I still thought he was a talented back taker, and then it resulted in a submission tonight, you know? I am interested to see how he goes forward. Let me look. I'm like looking at the division right now. Like, some interesting, they need to build him carefully. Like, I hated when Edmund Shabazian, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just got fed to the wolves, you know? And he just got like brutally beat 3 times in a row. And I don't want that same thing to happen to Rosas. I mean, the kid he was born in 2004. That's just fucking chaos. Like, oh my God. It makes me feel very old. Yeah. Good job, Cam. Yeah, I was a little on that Gordon decision as well. And I thought, going to the scorecards, I thought we were going to hit it, but I still was like, this could get weird. I still thought like a split decision could happen. When I heard 29-28, I thought we were good. And then it just we missed, you know? But yeah, like Rosas, I just want to see him matched up like properly. Bantamweight's pretty stacked, and I don't think he'll just be able to take down and back take everybody. And so I kind of want him to like be able to develop and not just get his ass beat by someone. They should give him like Ronnie Yaya. Like maybe not yet. Maybe like lower level guys first, but they should give him like a Ronnie Yaya. That would be just a fun fight, because it's like he could get a step up. I think he would probably win that fight. And it would just be fun. Like, let me know what you guys think about that one. They probably shouldn't give him yet. They should give him like a lower level guys like Perrin. But eventually, I think that would be good for him. Like, maybe a couple, if he wins like 2 more fights, give him like a Ronnie Yaya, and don't give him a fucking like really good defensive wrestler, which this division has, that could just beat him up. He's a strong, yeah. He is very physically strong for like his weight. And I don't know, like, I'm a wrestling coach, and I'm kind of impressed by his overall wrestling. I don't know if he had a wrestling background. I know he has a grappling background, but it looks like I was impressed by his takedowns whenever I was watching him taping for the Contender Series. But again, he was fighting bad fighters, so it's hard for me to gauge completely. But then again, tonight, his takedowns look good. Yeah. Dacus and Rosenstruik. I had no bet here. I picked Rosenstruik by knockout. Just in heavyweight fights, I generally just go with the guy who I think has better durability because I just assumed the fight was minus 550 to end inside the distance. And like, I think we would all agree, we thought it was going to end inside the distance. And in a fight like that, just I'm going to pick the more durable fighter. And these Dacus brothers, man, it's kind of sad because like they have some skills but they don't have the best durability at all. And then Kyle Dacus just doesn't have physicality either. I don't think Chris Dacus is like lacking in physicality as much as his like brother is relative to his weight division, but they have some skills. They just kind of don't have those other like weird, or those other kind of like qualitative factors, you know, such as durability and kind of physicality type of thing. What's up, Tim? Man, another fixed card. These are getting more normal. Yeah, like again, you're probably referring, I'm guessing, 1777. I'm guessing you're referring to the Patty fight. I thought Gordon should have won, but I don't think it. This is what I was talking. I talked about this earlier on the broadcast. I don't think it was a complete robbery because I do think rounds 2 and 3 were close, but I thought it was Gordon round 1, and then I gave him round 3, and round 2 I thought was kind of close, and you could have gone either way, and I kind of leaned slightly to Patty, and you could make like I could see how you could get a 29-28 Patty scorecard, but I thought it wasn't the best card. I thought the 3 acceptable scorecards were 3-0 Gordon, which I didn't score it, 29-28 Gordon, giving him rounds 1 and 3 and giving Patty 2, which is what I did. And then I guess you could get to Patty 2-1, and giving him rounds 2 and 3, but it still just kind of seems like a bit of a stretch. And my biggest issue isn't if you gave Patty rounds 2 and 3 and gave him the fight, I can live with it, but I still don't necessarily agree with it. But round 1 is the issue that 2 judges gave Patty round 1, which just seems fucking insane. And he got outlanded 40-29 in strikes, and he got hit harder, like easily. There's some nasty left hooks by Gordon there. So that was my biggest problem, was just that if 2 judges give Patty the fight, fine, but give him 2 and 3 and not 1. Like round 1 seemed so obvious to me. But yeah, I'll just keep kind of trucking along all the fights and just bouncing back and forth for your questions. Sorry if I'm not totally staying on topic. Yeah, I just talked about Dacus Rosenstruik, but I just picked the more durable guy. Rosenstruik just goes fuck it and just got in a street fight and just knocked him out. Shabazian and Dalcha. I tweeted out that I was like, I'm genuinely happy for Edmund getting like a much more realistic matchup, and I thought he looked all right. Like I mentioned to Gugabe, who I'm sometimes messaging during the card, that I thought it was a better performance by Edmund, and then he like disagreed. So maybe I was like, I don't know, like maybe I was just watching a different fighter, not paying attention enough. But I like generally thought Edmund, I thought he managed his gas tank better. I guess Dalcha will allow you to do that because Dalcha's not a volume guy, but I did think like Edmund looked a little more composed and managed his gas tank a little better than usual. But yeah, and then but Dalcha's still not very good. But like I just didn't like the matchmaking Shabazian was getting with like Jack Hermanson and all these killers, and he was just getting his ass beat. And Dalcha was a much more manageable fight for him. And I just hate seeing a sub 25-year-old getting concussions like he was in his last 3 fights. And I'm glad he took a year off, made a change in camp, and got a much more manageable matchup. It probably added, like, even though he took a year off, it probably added years onto his career. And yeah, like these managers and promoters just kind of need to do a better job of just not throwing these kids to the wolves. Like if you're over 25, fuck it. Like you're old enough to where you kind of just need to start fighting some of the better guys, I guess. But if you're under 25, I think these guys should take it easy a little more. It's almost like Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald was like 30, and he was fighting as if he was a shot 45-year-old. It's because he just he was developed, though, in his early 20s. But I just feel like sometimes some of these guys just take beatings in their early 20s and before they get into their athletic prime, Curtis and Buckley, I didn't bet this fight. I picked Buckley to win, and I thought he was going to be the better round-winning striker, which he was winning the fight, I thought. I was kind of in and out of the room on this fight, so I might not have as good of a memory on this one. But I seem to think that he was kind of up. And, yeah, he was up 50-36 in strikes. So, I thought he was kind of winning. But I did mention in my breakdowns on this fight that what concerned me is that Curtis is very durable. So he'll probably be there for 15 minutes. And Buckley's a little chinny. He's been knocked out a couple times now. And this is his third time in the last couple years, So that was what concerned me, is that Curtis kind of has a high floor, because even though I think he's going to lose if it goes to the cards, he still will probably get to the cards and have a chance at just hurting Buckley. And he eventually did and knocked him out. So I picked that one wrong, but it was the fight wasn't – striking is a high variance sport, and I always say that, and that's why I wouldn't bet on a fight like this, because they're kind of hard to call. Just call it like that Morono Ponzinibbio one. They're just both dropping each other every round, and it's how the fuck do you even predict this shit? Quarantillo and Hernandez. I actually played a little bit of cash on the doesn't go the distance. I think Ugave and I were talking about that in our podcast. I played a little bit on that, not a lot, but that cash. And I mean, the fight literally went to a script. Sometimes fights won't go anyway that I think at all, and then sometimes it literally round by round. And I think most people probably thought it was going to go like this, that Hernandez could have some early success, but eventually Quarantillo could probably wear him down. And Hernandez, I noticed, just doesn't handle getting hit in extended exchanges well. When he can fight 15 minutes if he's just sitting on the outside, like he was against Ronaldo, where there's 30 strikes each landing, or if they're just grappling, only grappling, and he's riding position like he did against OAM. When he is in a fight where he's getting hit and can't easily consolidate top position and can't sit on the outside, and you can't sit on the outside versus Quarantillo. Quarantillo comes at you with a cardio fucking march down, and that's what he did. And Hernandez wasn't able to control him on the mat, and he couldn't stand on the outside because Quarantillo doesn't. And so I figured either that would force Hernandez to swing, which it did, and he either could have just knocked Quarantillo out, which is one reason I like the under. But I picked Quarantillo to eventually get the TKO, and it came just because Hernandez just doesn't he seems to not like to get hit. And I feel like he got tired as well. It was a combination of the accumulation of strikes and getting tired. And and Quarantillo put him away. Hernandez did tough it out a little longer than I thought. I thought he was going to be fucked, honestly, after 4 minutes, and then he lasted kind of towards the end of round 2. But that was a pretty fun fight. So yeah, that fight kind of went as expected. I just don't know what Hernandez is going to do now. Let's look at his. Let's look where he's at. I forget all his recent fights. So he's lost. Damn, dude. The guy comes in and beats Dariush. It was fluke, though. Let's be real. If those guys fight 100 times, Dariush wins at 80-90. Then he beats OAM, 2 great wins. Then he loses 5 of his next 8. And one of his wins was against Ronaldo, which I didn't even think he won. One was against Grutzmacher, and one was against Mike Breeden. So, even his wins haven't been that impressive since that OAM fight. And then he got knocked out by Cerrone, knocked out by Dober, lost a decision to Moises, got finished by Moicano, and then he drops to featherweight and gets knocked the fuck out in this fight. Is this real? Really? Dana apparently just said Glover versus Jamal Hill for the lightweight. Oh wow, light heavyweight title in Brazil. So they're just saying fuck you to Magomed and Jan. That's crazy. So two guys who just fought for the belt just like don't get to fight for the belt again. That's fucking crazy. Oh my god. What if these motherfuckers get a draw now? That would be funny. Wow. Oh no, I believe you. And if you're trolling, it will be a funny troll. So I'm here for it. But I'm like thinking about that now. Yeah, I mean, I have to think about that matchup. Jamal's a motherfucker on feet. I think he has good first layer takedown defense, but I don't totally trust him when he's grounded. It's a little bit of a sketchy fight. Like Glover's really dangerous on top. I do think Jamal could probably knock his lights out. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. That's an interesting fight. But yeah, back to Hernandez. I just don't know where he's going to go now. Like he's taking a lot of damage too. Like he got fucked up versus Dober. He got fucked up versus Cerrone. He got fucked up versus Quarantillo. How old is this guy? 31. Yeah. He's not like a bad fighter. He's just not very defensively sound. And he just doesn't like to get hit. That's the problem. If he can't immediately knock you out or out grapple you, he just kind of runs out of ideas. And that's just something I've always seen about him. David, getting a lot of comments tonight. This is fun. Very interactive. Would love your thoughts on this. After seeing Topuria do what he did tonight, how do you like his chances against the top? Okay, I'm going to pull up the weight class. So the funny thing is, David, like I tweeted out earlier in the week that I was really surprised on like once I take that fight, I didn't have the original feelings that I thought I would. And I didn't want to give it away because I gave away Topuria to like people who I sell picks to, so I didn't want to like give it away. But going into the tape, I thought I was leaning Mitchell, like no strong opinions. And then once I actually taped, I ended up playing Topuria, and I'm pretty selective better. Like if you know me, I'm kind of a pussy at times, and I ended up playing Topuria, so that means I got pretty strong opinions. And so I just noticed how strong he is in the pocket, like with his punches, like he's really powerful. And I was like, dude, he is gonna fuck Mitchell up on the feet. And then I didn't think Mitchell would be able to out-grapple him easily. So that was kind of the basis of the bet. And I thought that Topuria would get him down. So he kind of impressed me the more. But I wasn't thinking about Topuria relative to the rest of the division. I was just more so thinking about him to Mitchell. And so let me look at the rest of the division. So we got Volkanovski. Volkanovski's untested against good grapplers. So like I'd have to think about that. Volkanovski's a motherfucker on the feet though. There's not many I would pick over him. Holloway would be interesting. Holloway's defensive grappling is very good. And I don't totally trust Topuria's cardio, and Holloway could have an advantage later, but Topuria could box him up early, man. Like Topuria, but Holloway's gotten a legendary chin, but he eats shots, and that's probably not good to eat shots early. That would be an interesting fight, though. Yair, I would pick Topuria to beat Yair. I think he out-grapples him. I would pick him to beat Ortega. Arnold Allen would be interesting. Josh Emmett, I'd probably pick Topuria. Zombie, I'd probably pick Topuria. And this could change if I taped. I'm just kind of going. Cater, that would be a good fight. Cater's really tough to grapple. That could be a scrap. Cater could maybe, again, it depends if it's 3 or 5 rounds. If it's Topuria 3 rounds against a lot of these guys, I think Topuria could really fuck him up. His 5-round cardio is something I'm skeptical of at this point. It could turn out to be really good, but he just fights in a style that seems like he would slow down. So like guys who can fight hard for 5 rounds and anti-grapple, like Max Holloway and Cater would be fights I would be a little concerned with him in, but I don't, he might fuck them up, but I don't really know, you know? I would just have to see him fight 5 rounds to know. Chikadze, he would fuck up just with the grappling. Mitchell, he just fucked up. Evloev would be a good fight. That would be a really, really good fight. They were like even money originally. I think that would be a good fight because like Evloev has cardio and he's tough to grapple. He can volume strike too. He's a better striker than Mitchell. That would be a good one. I think his toughest matchups would be Holloway, maybe Allen, just because Allen can strike and anti-grapple a bit. But Allen's weird. He's had some weird fights. I don't even know what to think of him. Holloway, Cater would be interesting. And if these are 5 rounds, if they're 3, it can be different. And then Evloev. Those are 3 guys in the top 10 who I think like could maybe give him issues. But the other guys I generally think Topuria beats. Ige, he would fuck up. Edson Barboza, I think he would fuck up. And then Topuria is number 14. So yeah, I just went through the top 10. So I mean, yeah, he's a player in this division. Like I mentioned a few guys I think would match up decently against him, but he could maybe win, you know? Cam, we did see the announcement. Yeah, Hill, I think you're referring to Hill and Glover, which is just kind of hilarious to me. We came in with a main event of 2 guys fighting for the light heavyweight belt, and then now neither of them are champion. Would Rip Cater to the body? Yeah, maybe. Like I'd have to think. Like Cater's weird because he's had some great performances and then like ones that haven't looked as good. Okay. Back to the fights. Okay. TJ Brown, Eric Silva. I did not give a fuck about this fight. I picked Silva, which doesn't look good. He was like one of my 3 picks I got wrong. But I didn't bet the fight at all. I didn't trust either guy, honestly. Like Silva had terrible competition on the regionals. And then TJ Brown isn't very good. So that was kind of like my concern. Like he's all right. Like he's all right. But if Silva just turned out to be all right as well, the fight could have just been a shit show. Gugabe played TJ Brown, so I was cheering for TJ Brown for him. So yeah, I mean, Silva just sucked on the mat, and TJ Brown was eventually able to just land takedowns, consolidate more and more top position, just kind of dominate the fight. So he got a very deserved win. Simon and Kosla. I picked Simon to win here. He's a big favorite. Was kind of, I missed the beginning of the first round, and then I came in. It looked like Kosla was maybe having a little grappling success at times, and they kind of just sloppily. I saw some people liking their grappling exchanges. I guess just the wrestler in me did not, because I hate bad position. Like when people like keep reversing each other, some people think it's like impressive wrestling, or impressive grappling, but I don't like that. Like whenever you're reversing positions like that, it just tells me like defensively both guys are like having issues, you know? Like really good wrestling and grappling was the Sabatello fight yesterday against Rufian Stotts. So that was amazing. That was a good fight, close fight. But yeah, Simon eventually he just out cardioed Koslow and eventually put him away. But yeah, that's the entire card. Like overall, I'm just happy that my Topuria bet cashed, but it was pretty fun. And I guess like the main, I'd say I'll spend like 5 more minutes on this broadcast and then I'm going to go to bed. But main takeaways are the main event, I guess, anticlimactic. I kind of agree with Cam here of like, I feel bad for Magomed too, because I felt like he was a better fighter. You know, like even, I guess you could give 3 rounds to Jan. I thought I scored round 1 Ankalaev and then 4 and 5 Ankalaev, and it gave him a 10-8 round 5. So I scored it for Ankalaev. So I do feel bad for him. And I do feel like even though Jan like arguably won the first 3 rounds, which I don't agree with, but you could argue it, I still feel like even if he would have won the fight, I thought Ankalaev was clearly like better. It was all Jan really had for him was the leg kicks, and then eventually Ankalaev pressured him and adjusted. So yeah. Yeah, like I always make the point of scorecards as like a range of outcomes are acceptable. So like the Paddy fight, I think a 30-27 for Paddy is not acceptable. I think these three were acceptable. That Gordon 30-27 and Gordon 29-28 or Paddy 29-28. So then generally I think you have more arguments for Gordon to get the decision because he has more scorecards that are like likely. And so that's why I kind of think that was a bad decision. But like I could feasibly see 29-28 rounds 2 and 3 for Paddy, but I don't agree with it. And this is kind of, yeah, like this is what I think too. What you're saying here is like there's like 3 scorecards in that Ankalaev fight that could be acceptable. 48-47 Jan is acceptable if you don't give Ankalaev a 10-8. And then I think 48-47 for Ankalaev is acceptable, rounds 1, 4, and 5. And then I think 48-46 is acceptable, where if you gave him 1, 4, and 5 and gave him a 10-8. So there's like 3 cards of acceptable outcomes. And then I might have messed that up. I guess a 47-47 is possible as well. If you gave Jan the first 3, so there's 4 outcomes, I guess. If you gave Jan the first 3 and then you gave Ankalaev 4 and 5 and gave him a 10-8, I think so then you could get 47 as well. So like, yeah, like I think you're right. There's just a range of outcomes that are acceptable. And yeah, like I agree with this. I still think rounds 2 and 3, like I agree Magomed won like out of the 50 or the 25 minute 50, it's way too late. I'm like so tired. Out of the 25 minutes, like Magomed probably won like 20 of them, but the couple minutes that like Jan won in 2 and 3, he busted up the legs and it's bad visuals. And I do think it matters. Like he completely, impacted the way Magomed could even walk. Like Magomed was hurt from those leg kicks. So I do think Jan deserved those rounds 2 and 3. But I still thought Ankalaev won the fight, and I do think he's the better fighter. But yeah, I think the main takeaways is the main event anticlimactic. Pimblett, I don't even know what you do next with the guy because he's not very good. And that it was kind of a controversial decision. I don't think it was a robbery, but I think it was like probably the wrong guy won. And then I think the other main takeaway is Topuria is a contender. Like I think he's a legit contender. And it will be interesting to see who I think they should run him and Evloev. I think that's what they should do. Him and Evloev, and then if a perfect world, because I don't like Paddy very much, is give him Saruki. Just feed him to Saruki and let Saruki just beat the fuck out of him. That would be awesome. That would, like if we got Sarukian under minus 200, that would be a big bet for me, for sure. Sarukian would just maul him. But all right, guys, thank you for all you guys participating. That was fun. I think I'm gonna do the podcast with Ugabe every week. I know it's kind of the end of the year, so we'll just have one more. And then we'll come back in January. And then I think I'm going to do these recaps whenever I'm not hanging out, whenever I'm like not, I don't have plans with my like girlfriend or something, like just on nights on Saturdays when I can do them, I will do them. I can't do them every Saturday though, but this was fun. I enjoy this. Maybe I'll save them for the pay-per-view or something. So thanks for participating. And yeah, our podcast will be on Wednesday for the Strickland and Cannonier card. So that should be a lot of fun. But thank you, boys, and talk to you next week.